Spongebob Squarepants is rightfully regarded as one of the greatest animated TV shows of all time. A fixture on Nickelodeon from the late 1990s onwards, the show has produced a wave of episodes which are rightly regarded as among the best that children's TV has to offer. But there is one episode of the show which is a constant fixture in any conversations about the best episodes of SpongeBob, and that's Band Geeks. The episode revolves around Squidward lying about having a marching band to save face in front of his rival, Squilliam, before having to quickly cobble together a band in less than a week after Squilliam offers him the chance to play at the Bubble Ball, a loose parody of the Super Bowl. After a week mired by disaster, Squidward all but gives up and resigns to defeat, before SpongeBob manages to rally the townspeople together to perform a rendition of Sweet Victory by David Glen Eisley, much to Squilliam and Squidward's surprise. There's a lot about this episode that makes it one of the greats, from the introduction of the character Squilliam Fancy Son to the relentless gag-packed script, which manages to cram in a host of some of the show's most iconic moments. But I think Band Geeks works so well and remains so beloved because of one fundamental decision. It makes Squidward the protagonist. Now I know what you're thinking, Squidward is obviously one of the show's most beloved characters, and other than maybe Patrick, has the most prominent role on the show besides SpongeBob himself. But Squidward's appeal often lies in the fact that he's diametrically opposed to SpongeBob in almost every possible situation. Where SpongeBob is selfless, Squidward is often self-absorbed. Where SpongeBob is humble about his many talents, Squidward suffers from an inflated sense of self-importance. Where SpongeBob is carefree and impulsive, Squidward is anxious and cautious. This isn't to say that Squidward is the antagonist of the show, far from it, but rather that he is something of a Frank Grimes-esque character, a super rational introvert trapped in a world of exaggerated personalities and wacky hijinks. He's the real person in this otherwise cartoon universe, and whilst often we can see that his actions are selfish or bullish, we often empathise with the exasperation he feels over having to contend with the childishness of SpongeBob and Patrick, the excessive greed of Mr. Krabs, and the bizarro world logic of Bikini Bottom's society. As Allegra Frank notes, to be Squidward isn't a compliment exactly, but it's not a stigma. But by the same token, Squidward is often the character we don't want to succeed. As much as it may be easy to see Squidward's point of view in an episode like The Idiot Box or Paper, 9 times out of 10 he's positioned as an antagonising force, someone who's trying to stop our protagonist from having a good time. But this all changes in Band Geeks, because Squidward becomes the guy that we're supposed to root for. There's probably an alternate version of this episode where it plays something like this. Squidward lies about having a band to impress Squilliam, enlists SpongeBob and the gang to help him, and then when the big day comes, they mess it up and leave him humiliated. In fact, scratch that. This episode exists. It's called Squilliam Returns, and it's in series 3, and it's about Squidward opening a restaurant, and whilst it's got a few solid gags, it lacks something that is fundamental to Band Geeks' success: empathy. Right from the get-go, Band Geeks is trying to put you in Squidward's position and get you to see what really drives his eternal misery. As he practices clarinet in his living room, he receives a call from Squilliam, who berates him over the lack of success he's had in the music world.
I hear you're playing the cash register now. Or sometimes.
As Squilliam continues to berate him and boast about his successes, we see the growing frustration overcome Squidward's face, until he utters something which in a lesser episode would be constructed as delusional.
It just so happens that I don't sell fast food. I do have a band, and we're gonna play that Bubble Ball.
But instead, this sequence functions as a means by which to understand Squidward better and make him more relatable. Usually, Squidward is the one feeling superior to those around him, but in Band Geeks, we finally get to see why Squidward thinks how he thinks. He's a guy who wants to do something with his life, to find some way of defining himself, but instead, he lives in the shadow of narcissists like Squilliam, who spend their time berating him for his lack of achievement and humble existence. Squidward's decision to lie to Squilliam is not so much born out of a means by which to impress him, but rather to prove that he's worth something, and should feel foolish for chastising him. We've all wanted to stick it to someone who thinks they're better than us. This opening image provides us with the perfect way in which to empathise with Squidward's plight. It makes us understand why up until this point he spent so much of his time looking down on SpongeBob. He wants to be something more. Like all struggling artists, Squidward suffers from delusions of grandeur, and whilst in Band Geeks this is no different, consider for example the arrogant flyers that Squidward posts to advertise for positions in his band.
Become part of the greatest musical sensation ever to hit Bikini Bottom.
Across the episode we get an insight into the internalised self-loathing formed from years of Squilliam making him feel inadequate. As the residents of Bikini Bottom struggle to adapt to their instruments, we see Squidward's increasing nihilism and desperation, from his wish to have been maimed by flying drumsticks,
Too bad that didn't kill me.
through to him curling up on the ground in the fetal position after 2 of his flag twirlers die in a marching accident. The episode showcases the increased desperation on Squidward's end as he strives to prove to Squilliam that he is worth something, that he is truly valuable. This culminates in a monologue in which, after watching as his band descends into anarchy and violence, Squidward berates the residents of Bikini Bottom for failing to support him.
Well, you did it. You took my one chance at happiness and crushed it.
This idea of this being Squidward's one shot at happiness is pivotal to Band Geeks' success. As much as we know deep down that Squidward is a mediocre musician, we know that this is also the thing he wants more than anything else, and to see it destroyed before his very eyes is heartbreaking. This is an episode about dreams, about surpassing your own limits and expectations and achieving something in spite of them. And I think this is why this episode resonates with so many people, because each and every one of us has known what it is like to want, to dream, just as each and every one of us knows what it is like to struggle in an effort to achieve it. Which is why it's so satisfying to see Squidward's dream fulfilled, if only temporarily, at the end of the episode, because we can relate to how much this means to him. Of course, Squidward's dream is only achieved through the help of his friends and neighbours, and Band Geeks would be nothing were it not for its excellent turns by each member of the show's supporting cast, who each get their own moment to shine. When I think of why Band Geeks remains one of my favourite episodes, it's in part because it's one of the few episodes to feature almost the entirety of the show's cast in some capacity, with each character providing some of the show's most iconic moments. There's Plankton, who is keen to demonstrate his abilities on the harmonica. Sandy, kicking 7 shades of out of Patrick for kicking her whilst initiating a chorus line.
What?
Mr. Krabs, who remains as tight as ever.
When do we get the free food?
And of course, there's Patrick, asking Squidward about the tonal properties of condiments.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either.
This episode is determined to give each of its characters their own little moment, and if you've never seen Spongebob before, then what better way to be introduced to the show than an episode which communicates to you who each and every one of these characters are in such a short space of time. But it is through its depiction of SpongeBob that Band Geeks really demonstrates what Spongebob Squarepants is all about. Essentially absent for a good portion of the episode, or rather, no more present than the rest of Bikini Bottom's residents. It is SpongeBob's rallying cry to his friends after seeing Squidward's despondency that proves the catalyst for the episode's emotionally charged ending.
That poor creature came to us in his hour of need, and we failed him.
What I love so much about this sequence is that it really amplifies why SpongeBob is the show's beating heart and moral centre. Whilst he's obviously able to recognise that Squidward is often the least neighbourly of the town's residents,
Squidward's always been there for us when it was convenient for him.
it is SpongeBob's insistence that this be put aside, and instead that a good deed should be done for a good deed's sake, that ultimately galvanises the town into working together to help Squidward out of his predicament. Whilst the idea of simply pretending that Squidward is responsible for a string of good deeds may seem stupid at first glance.
So if we all could just pretend that Squidward was a fireman or some guy in an ambulance.
The dialogue is actually more in step with one of the central philosophies of SpongeBob, that of community support. It is total strangers who help these people overcome their problems, and by the same virtue, these people are equally capable of coming together and helping their neighbour in his time of need. Good deeds do not need to be done because of some karmic imbalance or emotional debt, but rather need to be done as a means to an end, as a way of supporting each other and creating a better and more fruitful community. SpongeBob, despite his flaws, has always been there for those who need his support, and this act of selflessness on his part, this recognition of Squidward's situation, is what makes him such a likeable character. He doesn't want anything in return, nor does he seek to benefit from his work. He helps Squidward because it's the right thing to do, to give his friend that one perfect day that he so desperately needs. All of this makes the final sequence in which the townsfolk perform Sweet Victory so satisfying. This song is not simply a way to demonstrate the musical prowess of Squidward's marching band, but also to show just how much this gesture from the townspeople means to Squidward. At the end of the second act, we saw Squidward in abject despair, chastising the residents of Bikini Bottom for letting him down. But by the end, Squidward owes them his reputation, and to a larger extent, this fleeting happiness. Squidward may be, at heart, a selfish person, but in this brief instance he gets to see just how much this community truly means to him, that these people who he often looked down on can, when they come together, help and support him and allow him to achieve his dream. And it feels so fitting that the final shot of this story sees Squidward leap into the air in a state of elation, freeze-framed until we fade to black, because it almost feels as if it plays out within Squidward's head. Much like a cherished memory, Squidward savours this moment for as long as he can, and I think it's one of the only times of the series we actually get to see Squidward smile because he's happy. Not because he's got something over on someone or has been proven right, but because he is actually genuinely happy. It's an incredible moment to see a character so trampled on get his moment to shine, and it underscores just how heartwarming this episode ultimately is. Band Geeks will always have a special place in my heart because of this. It's not only one of the funniest episodes of the entire series, but it's also the one with the most heart, and provides the best representation of why SpongeBob transcended being a children's cartoon and became a cultural phenomenon. Because without this feeling of community, this care and consideration for each of its characters, SpongeBob would just be a very funny show. But investing in Bikini Bottom and making us care about each of its residents, Band Geeks allowed SpongeBob to become something even more. Thank you for watching another full fat video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button if you'd like to see more of our deep dives into reality TV. Also, huge thanks to all of our patrons, especially Dr. Chike, Jax Merrick and Mike Nandu. You're all amazing. Until next time, stay